live in such a celebrity crazed, wealth worshiping culture that it's easy to forget sometimes that being really proud of what you do and loving what you do doesn't have to come with a standing ovation and $1 million paycheck and a trophy.
We always have an odd one in the crowd.
So it's kind of odd.
Decidedly odd.
Doesn't that strike you as a little bit odd?
No, that doesn't strike me as a little bit odd.
It's the Bob and Sheri Oddcast, the stuff we wouldn't, couldn't, or shouldn't do on the regular show. Now, here's the Oddcast.
If you're listening to this episode when we released it, we are in the thick of celebration awards season. We've got the Grammys, and we've already had the Critics' Choice and the Golden Globe, and now we're going to have the Oscars and the Super Bowl. And these are enormous staged public spectacles celebrating achievement and accomplishment. And I think that's awesome. I think that we should celebrate greatness, whether it's on the playing field or the Broadway stage or wherever, right? Love it. I have no beef with that. But one thing that I think about sometimes is when you live in a culture that glorifies fame and wealth to that degree, do you lose touch with the simple, everyday reality that all around you are people who really love what they do and they're really good at it and they're never going to get a statue or a bonus or their picture on the cover of a magazine. And we don't celebrate those people enough. Like I'm thinking, last week I took my husband for his first surgery post-op. And if he had been a very good boy and everything was healing properly, they would put him in a hard cast. And so everything was great. I'm really proud of how well he's done. And he got his hard cast. And the technician that came in to do the cast, treated putting a cast on Kevin's leg like he was painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. And he was explaining everything he did as he did it. And he's telling both of us, he's like, now I'm going to do this little extra step here. It's mostly for comfort. Because, wearing a cast, have you ever worn a cast? No, I've never worn. Well, it can be uncomfortable, hot and itchy, and people can struggle with it. So I'm going to put this here, and that's going to help give you a little more comfort. And then he saw that Kev's using one of those knee scooter things. So he custom built the cast with extra padding so that when Kev puts his leg on the scooter, he's got a little bit of extra cushion between his shin bone and the seat. Yeah. And he talked about now see the way I'm wrapping it because it gives you a nice, smooth, tight finish. It looks good. He took so much pride in his work and he was clearly so into it. He said, this is my, putting a cast on, especially when you have to get all the angles right, is as much an art as it is a science. And part of the reason for that is Kevin's foot my husband had to have his whole foot rebuilt like the freaking Bionic Man. His foot had to be in a certain angle and position when the cast went on. So you're not just dangling your leg off the end of the table. He had to get it into a certain position for optimal healing. And the technician is stepping back and he's studying it. Then he's, putting a little more fiberglass here and a little more fiberglass there. And while he's talking, he's like, if you have some paint markers or maybe a silver Sharpie, it looks really good on this black fiberglass. And I'm watching this man work and I thought, you know what, Est? That was his name. No one's going to give you a round of applause today. You will not be on the cover of People magazine. You're not preparing your acceptance speech because you're not getting a prize. But you, my man, you are what greatness looks like. The everyday, simple, humble greatness of being proud of the work you do. And I know, Lamar, because you've told me stories over the years that we've known each other, that you've had some coworkers at Budweiser who completely walked that beautiful walk. That's what we're going to talk about in today's Oddcast. Loving what you do, even when you're not Travis Kelce or Taylor Swift. So take me back to the Budweiser warehouse, Lamar, to some of the people that you worked with who would come in an ice storm on 2 hours of sleep because they took so much pride in their role and their job and what they had to bring.
Anybody, and Max and I have talked about this, anybody, excuse me, that's in management of any kind of deal, if you've got the right people that really, really, like you say, they love their job and they're serious about it, if you've got those people, managing is the easiest thing in the world. You just leave them alone. Because, and I had quite a handful of guys. Had this one guy though, and if he ever left, he's still there. If he ever left, it would take a minimum of 2.5 people to replace this guy, because he's that guy that does everything. And he's the guy that you never have to tell him how to do it. And you certainly, if you don't have your eyes on him, you don't have to worry about it. Don't have to go see what he's doing. He's doing it. And he's one of these guys that it looks like he's moving in slow motion, but he's not wasting a motion. He's never in a hurry, but he gets so much work done. And whether he is, doing the floors, whether he's picking up stuff, it doesn't matter what he's doing. He does it absolutely perfectly. And it just means something to it. And it's amazing and this is not like he's not doing but without him, nothing else happens. I mean, he has to do what he does. Yeah. And he is an unbelievable guy. I've had a couple of guys that are so, I don't know if you call it, they always say, I got a little ADHD, they can't leave anything until it's exactly perfect. And sometimes I'd say, that's good enough. Good enough ain't getting it. Good
Not
enough.
for them, yeah.
No, it's not. And one of these guys that I'm thinking about, I could watch it because we have a long drive-through from where you come in down, and all the trucks come in to get loaded, and they park inside and whatever. But it's probably about 75-yard drive-through. And I have watched him clock in, and I don't remember ever a time that I didn't see him as he's walking that walk. All of a sudden, he'd either go left or right, bend over, and pick up a very small piece of paper. In a humongous warehouse, there's the size of a quarter piece of paper. Pick it up. I mean, I had a lot of guys like that. It's amazing. I wish I had a dose of what they had. I mean, I really do. I'm amazed.
When I think about it, I love watching people who love what they do. And I get really, my hackles go up, and I get real, like my Philly comes out if someone goes, oh, this guy thinks he's the star of the Wendy's or whatever. But he is the star of the Wendy's. He enjoys what he does, and he takes pride in it. And here's why I love those people, because they know something that a lot of us don't. They understand that this is your life. And maybe you're not the quarterback. Maybe you're not the movie star, right? This is your life, and you can choose every minute of every day of that life. Well, this is my life. What's my attitude going to be? This is what I do. Am I going to grind my way through it, or am I going to find a way to take some fulfillment out of it? And there are jobs where it is difficult to find it fulfilling. But the fulfillment comes from your own personal investment in excellence and attitude and all of those things. And I don't mean to sound like some sort of middle management corporate retreat speaker, because I think that these are the happier people. And these people, you have neighbors that are like this. You maybe have a relative or a friend who's like this. You have a coworker who has a smile, they like what they do, and they're happy to help you, and they're happy to do it. And they walk through this world with far fewer bricks on their backs. At least that's what I think. I could be completely wrong.
Well, when you were saying that, you mentioned, it's not comes from a middle manager. No. Middle managers can never make a person like that. that person comes into that
It's
person's
eternal.
father, that person's father or mother or somebody put him in a direction. I had this one guy. Now he was relentless. Oh my gosh, the workingest fool. Oh my gosh, he was relentless. And one day I asked him, I said, "What is the deal?" I said, "You're an amazing worker. You never stop. You just never stop." And he said, "When my brother and I were small, my dad came home, and they lived in a double wide trailer. And he said my dad came home and decided he wanted to add a basement to the double wide trailer.
Oh, I'd like to see it.
He said me and my brother's job was to crawl up under that trailer and start digging. And he said for an entire summer, we dug, and we hauled off dirt, and we dug and we dug and we dug. And he said once we got it down deep enough, then he came in and got block and laid block. And he said we had a basement. We had a basement under the double wide. He said, but that's what we did all summer long. He said from the time we got up, and he said, he'd be out there with us. He said, but we're digging. And he said, my dad worked. He worked like that. And he said, he made us work like that. And he expected us to work like that. And he said, I've never had a problem getting a job. I've never, he said, that's just the way it is. He said, I don't know. I don't know another way. So middle management has nothing to do with this. Nothing. There's nothing middle management.
You're right. You can't manufacture these people. It's just we chase in American culture, we chase happiness. Look, we're the only country in the world whose constitution tells us that we have every right to pursue happiness. Now, some of us get confused and we mistake pursuit for get. You can pursue happiness. Maybe you never catch that bitch, but you're not guaranteed to get that happiness, right? You just have the right to pursue it. We chase happiness, and we always think that it's just around the bend. And this is part of our consumerist culture. That happiness is something that we can buy and acquire and attain, and it's always just around the next curve. We're going to be happy when we lose the weight. We're going to be happy when we buy the car. We're going to be happy when we get the house. We're going to be happy when we find the life partner. The happiness is just around the corner. Then you get the life partner, but you're still not quite happy. So maybe when you get the new job, and you're still not quite happy. So maybe if I get some Botox, I'm still not quite happy. And we chase that happiness like a greyhound chasing a mechanical rabbit. And a lot of times we never, ever catch it, right? And we're conditioned from childhood to chase that mechanical rabbit. But you take people who take pride in what they do and who love it, who don't every day at work isn't a freaking rainbow colored sparkly picnic. No, of course not. That's why we call it work and not vacation. But they themselves take pride in what they make, what they do, whatever that is. I think those are the people that catch the rabbit. I think those are the happy people.
Well, the thing about it, the last thing I want to sound like is some motivational teacher here and a motivational whatever. But if all you ever do is figure out that if I can get the right external thing, all of a sudden I'll magically be happy. You're just never going to do it. But you can't do it.
But we say that we know that won't bring happiness. But the subtext of everything that we're being taught says that will bring us happiness.
Yeah.
So the idea is, well, you're gonna go to school and you're gonna get good grades. Why do you want to get good grades? You get good grades, you get into a good school. You get into a good school, you get a good degree. The degree will get you a good job. You get the good job. What's good about a good job? It's a lot of money. You get the money and you get all those things that Sheri was just talking about. And then the thing that we don't say is, and then you'll be happy. Because we think that that's what it is. And so on the one hand, we say, no, it's the simple things that are most important in life. Those are things. But on the other hand, we go, yeah, we say that. But really, we know that it is
There's a balance.
There's
a balance.
There is a balance.
There's a balance. Because I have spent my life working 4 jobs, 5. I've spent my life pursuing it. I've been doggedly after it. Still ain't caught it. Still hadn't caught it. But the whole time that I'm dogging after it, I'm having a pretty good time. I mean, I'm enjoying the fact
It's your
that
attitude, but
I'm after it.
that is your attitude. You know,
It is.
I mean,
it is. But I don't know. I hate it if somebody can't get that. I hate it when somebody can't have that.
I have a
because I've
friend.
got it.
He is one of the most grateful people that I've ever met in my life. He works. He does paint and body on cars, right? And
Yeah.
that is work that you're doing in a garage. And in the wintertime,
Ooh.
you're
cold.
still in a garage. You might have space heaters, but it's cold in there. You know.
Yeah. It
He
is.
just
It is.
he has this attitude of, when that comes out and those people are happy, that makes me happy to be able to do this. And I just get down there and I do it as best that I can. And that's the attitude that he has about everything. And I'll tell you what, he's a joy to be around because he's not sucking the life out of you. He just has that attitude. And in the end, that's the only thing we can control.
That's
And
it.
this is what I'm talking about. These people, like Max, you're that way. Like it's better now, but we went through, especially in the early days of COVID, we went through some hell
Oh my.
here. And the
No.
days were unthinkably, unbearably long for Max. And it was exhausting because we were trying to do something that we weren't prepared to do. You know, like when we woke up on Friday the 13th, March 2020, we had no idea what was coming for us by 4:00 that afternoon. We had to pivot and figure out how to do our jobs. We had to buy equipment, and we trial and error. Well, this didn't
Oh,
work. Let's
my.
try that. Well, that's not really working. Let's try that. I'll tell this because the Oddcast audience, I think, will find this interesting. The early days of the show in COVID, we were using a platform that is absolutely terrific for podcasters, but completely unwieldy for a radio show. And so every day we do a 4-hour radio show every day, 5 days a week. Every day, Max would have to weave together 4 separate strands of audio into one coherent break. And he had to do that 16 times every day.
And
4
sometimes,
channels of audio mixed down to one,
because
16 times.
the way the internet is, there's drift. And so we'll record it in there, and then Bob and Sheri will be talking to each other, but it didn't match. So I would have to adjust the audio so the two of them could talk to each other and it would make sense. And it was a long day. I mean, there was a lot that was connected into it. Plus, we had to Sheri and I know so much more about technology than we knew going into that, because we always relied on an IT guy or an engineer to be right Johnny on the spot and say, how do you do this? We had to end up going through tutorials and everything else to be able to do it. But
I became an IT guy.
yeah.
I became an IT guy thanks to COVID. Max became an engineer. And so we worked on that for a while, and then we were like, this is a great product, but it's not working for us, and we found something else. And gradually things got better, and then Doc joined us, and Doc is like Mr. Scotty in Star Trek. Like he's in the bowels of the ship making sure that we're not destroyed by Klingons every single day. And so we finally figured some stuff out. But I will tell you that on our darkest days, and we have had some tough ones, this in 2023, Max lost both of his parents, and he just lost his dog Cooper, and he was sick. Like it was an annus horribilis, to quote the late Queen Elizabeth. It was a really rough year for Max. And there was one day that was really, really difficult. And he and I do another podcast together called True Weird Stuff.
Yeah.
So it's me and Max and Doc working on True Weird Stuff. And we do that in our spare time, like when we're not doing all the other things that is our actual job. And it had just been like a beating upon beating upon beating for Max. And I said, I'm so sorry. I wish I could win the lottery and spare you from this. And in the midst of all of that grief and sickness and exhaustion and a workload the size of a mountain, Max said, but I love what I do and I would miss it even if I won the lottery. I
And I
love doing
do.
this.
And I do love doing this. I love putting bits of sound together. I love making people feel certain things from different little projects that I put together where people go, that frightened me, or I got chills, or whatever that is. And to be able to do that, well, that's amazing. That's amazing to be able to sit down and be able to be a part of that.
And you don't chase, Max. You don't chase the rabbit. I have known you for forever, and you don't chase the new shiny car. You don't chase the new shiny technology. You're not like looking in the mirror and not liking what you see. So, I mean, you live an attitude of gratitude. You live a life of trying to be of service, and you love what you do. And look at the difference in the way you're moving through this one precious life versus some other people that we know. Where they're not, it doesn't matter what you give them. It doesn't matter what accolades or prizes or toys. The shine is off of it before it's out of the package, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it was really no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I said this before, and I'm going to say this again. I think I said it recently on a podcast, but when my father passed away, here he is. He's lost most of his vision. He's bound to a wheelchair. He's, at this point he was in his 90s. He lived to 102. He was in his 90s, and he started sing-alongs in the dining room of the assisted care facility where he lived, and people would sing along, and they'd take requests and everything else. And I told him, I said, you have such a great attitude. I said, how do you do that? And then he said, it's all I have. And there's a great lesson in that, because he's in a situation where it would be very easy for him to just feel sorry for himself and get down and all of these things. But he refused to do that by sheer just having a good attitude about things. And I told him, I said, Dad, I never stopped learning from you.
They don't make them like your mom and dad. I was convinced for the longest time that your parents were somehow
Cyborgs,
immortal beings from Krypton or whatever, because they were just. But there's a certain amount of just the sheer blessings of genetic roulette. Some people are just born with more positivity, more resilience, and some people are born with the opposite. They're not as resilient, and they tend to live in a place of like fear. And fear presents sometimes as rage.
Right.
You're so afraid that you're not good enough that you lash out with anger to protect yourself, right?
Right.
So some of it's genetic, and I think when we look at your dad, we see that he was blessed with a ton of positivity and resilience, and you got that. But then your life hasn't been a picnic. Your life hasn't been without struggle and loss and difficulty and challenge. And you have met those things, not with fear and rage, but with like humility, I think. What do you think, Lamar?
I'm the
You are the
humblest.
humblest.
Oh, yeah. He is the humble. Oh, God.
He is the humblest.
He is. He is. And self-critical. Humble and self-critical. He does such a fantastic. He'll go, God, I could have done that better. Oh, I could have done that better. Oh, gosh. No, that's true.
I was thinking while I was watching this guy sculpt, because that's what he did. He sculpted this fiberglass enclosure for my husband's jacked up leg. He sculpted it with his hands, and he took so much time and care and precision. And I was watching him, and I thought, in my job, I've had the opportunity to meet some pretty incredible people in all walks of life. I mean, I once had the longest bear hug with Mr. T, and he wasn't wearing anything but a silky bathrobe and some cologne, and that was a moment I'm never going to forget. I mean, I've met literal movie stars, rock stars, former presidents. Like, I have had such an amazing life for a scrappy little free lunch, coatless orphan, And when I think back on those people, the ones that left the strongest impression on me were the guys like Jimmy Wayne. who
Mm.
are like, man, can you believe it? I get to do this? Because we have met, and we won't name these names because that would be mean, I think. But Max and I have met some people that seemingly had it all, and boy, were they miserable. Boy, were they angry, miserable people. And they were big successes to the outside world.
Yeah.
But they were like puckered up, angry little lemons in real life. And you would look at them and think, well, what's it going to take? Because you've gotten, quote unquote, everything, and you're just so angry and bitter and disappointed. What more can we give you? Do you need to be the literal king of the world? Like, what more do you need?
But there's no
And then
set of circumstances that would fix that.
Yeah. So the next time, like, you're out somewhere, I don't care if it's like Lowe's or a restaurant or a flooring store or Jiffy Lube or wherever, and you come across somebody who clearly loves what they do and has taken some real pride and pleasure in it, like, take a minute, give that person that little quiet internal standing ovation that they're never going to get. And if you ever hear somebody make fun of that person, if you ever hear somebody say, oh, look at this guy, what kind of asshole could be happy changing people's oil? I want you to give that person a good sharp elbow, because shame on them. Shame on anybody that looks at someone who's working their way through this burning sewer of a world with a little bit of joy and pride in what they do. What kind of dickweed would you have to be to not celebrate that?
I love it. You are so eloquent with words, but every once in a while the Philly comes out. You know what I mean? It's like you'll have a choice spot, and it really stands out like this dickweed.
Thank you. Don't be the kind of jabroni that rains on somebody's parade. You guys need to know better than that. All right, thank you for listening to the Oddcast. And all of us are now going to give all of you a round of applause. All of you that are out there never getting the Oscar, never getting the Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
We see you.
Still getting it done.
We see you, and we have respect.